we interrupt your regularly scheduled brainwashing with a dose of reality from CNS Dispatch. CNS. Citizens, not servants.
So good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever happens to be while you're watching. So, haven't done one of these for a while. I had to take my son to practice today, so figured I'd do it in the vehicle while I'm waiting for him to finish up his practice. So, took a family vacation for a week, and then had to go to California for a week for work. Just got over, still more or less getting over a cold. I don't know if you're hearing my voice or not, but really haven't felt it to do a video, but I figured I'd do one today. Catch you all up on a few things, hit a few highlights. So I'll start with the this new Ministry of Truth fucking thing the government's doing. So I have a few questions. First of all, the White House has been saying, Jen Psaki's been saying, they're continuing the work of the prior administration, meaning this Ministry of Truth was created by Trump or started by Trump. So a few questions. Who are the board members under Trump of this Ministry of Truth? Name them. Show me the federal documentation that's required to establish a department under the executive branch that started under Trump. Show that to me, and then we can talk about this prior administration lie. Further to the Ministry of Truth. None of you in government, my congressman, senator, president, board members of this Ministry of Truth thing are my mom, dad, my sons or daughters, my grandchildren. Those are the only ones that even have the semblance of ability to tell me what I can and cannot do. So there is law regarding certain types of speech, which a lot of it I vehemently disagree with. But disinformation, misinformation, is not illegal. It is not against the law. You can argue the morality of it. You could argue that we shouldn't do it. But I got a few questions for you people that are pro Ministry of Truth dumbasses, congressmen, board members themselves. Project Veritas is a targeted group by the left. Nobody likes them because they expose the left and CEOs of companies and department heads of companies, etc. Left doesn't like them because they're exposing stuff, right? Well, James O'Keefe, the CEO, if you will, of Project Veritas, recently wrote a book called The Muckraker. New York Times bestseller, Amazon bestseller, etc. Am I allowed to buy that book? Is there a law that prevents me from buying that book? Is there a law that prevents me from reading that book? Is there a law that prevents me from talking about what I read in that book? No? Okay. So this Ministry of Disinformation, or Department of Disinformation, Ministry of Truth, if I can buy a book, if I can read a book, and I can discuss this book, because it is not illegal to do so, what role do you play? What exactly are you going to do? So if I verbally discuss this book with friends, family, there's not a damn thing you can say nor do about it. Okay? But if I tweet or post about it on certain social media platforms, or if I happen to do a video if I did a video review of that book, let's say, and posted it on certain media platforms, the platforms themselves, based on their policies, could restrict that speech because that is their policy. It's their platform that I'm free to use as long as I follow their rules. What role do you play in that? If I go onto a platform that allows free speech, say like Gab as an example, and I post about, whether it be in words or in video form, my review of that book, what can you do about it? Can you do something to me legally? You are representatives of this government. You have to follow the law. What law is there that prevents me from talking about a book like Muckraker? Let's just substitute that book for any book. Mein Kampf. The new Black Panther Party book. Any book about the KKK. Any book about La Raza. Any book that's controversial. You cannot legally prevent me from purchasing a book, reading a book, or verbally discussing a book. Period. Can't happen. The owners of platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Rumble, YouTube, what have you, their policies dictate what I can and cannot do, and I have to agree to their terms and conditions before I'm allowed to interact on their posts. So they have a say in that. So whether you agree with what censorship they may or may not do is irrelevant. If it's within their policy guidelines and it's clearly written out, you're agreeing to it. So, but if I go on to a social media platform like Gab and post about controversial subjects, what can you, as the Ministry of Truth, do about it? You can't impose fines on me. You can't put me in jail. You can't arrest me because there is no law against it. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. First Amendment in the Bill of Rights. So you cannot abridge, as a government official, my freedom of speech. Me posting on social media platforms is covered and protected as freedom of speech from a legal perspective. The policy of the platform owners, separate subject. Lawfully speaking, there's nothing you can do about it. So if I were to post a controversial subject or a subject that you deem to be disinformation, so what? Are you going to start fining, abridging, mandating that social media platforms do something about this speech? That's called coercion, which is illegal, which is against the law. If you're going to make a law that states that social media platforms have to censor, whatever connotation you want to put to that, a certain part of speech, now you're in the illegal, unconstitutional part. So what exactly are you going to do? Are you going to dox me? I'm not talking about the social media platforms. I'm not talking about the owners of the platforms themselves. That's their policy stuff. But you as a government, you as a government official, you as a representative of this government, what exactly are you going to do if you come across some disinformation posted on whatever social media platform? What is it, or what are your legal bounds? Can you correct me? Sure. But then it leads me to another question. When you write high school papers, collegiate papers, you have to have sources and cite your sources in order for A, prove it's not plagiarism, B, to show that you are doing fact checking and you're backing up your assertion with fact. Okay? So, in order for you to claim something is disinformation, what sources are you going to cite as the actual information? So as an example, right now there's, I think it's up to 18 food processing type plants have been burnt down to the ground. Planes have flown into 2, I think, within a week of each other. There was just one. So today's May the 3rd. I think it was yesterday or maybe it was a day before. Another plant caught on fire. So the facts are these plants have caught on fire. You can't argue those facts. The unattributed part is how and why. I don't believe in coincidences, first and foremost, so let's just get this straight. However, the media's not really reporting on them. They're reporting, the Joe Friday part of it, that this such plant has caught on fire. such and such plant had an airplane fall out of the sky and catch this plant on fire. So that's what they're doing. But what they're not doing is they're not investigating, they're not coming out with the reasons why. So what they are doing is actually a lie of omission. So if your purpose is to be a disinformation, filter, you're there to prevent disinformation from getting out, how are you preventing lies of omission? A. And B, if I go out and start citing sources that say this is a coordinated effort per se, let's just go with that for now. What sources are you going to use to determine my information is disinformation? What are you going to use? You're going to use the FBI that's been caught lying. You're going to use the DOJ, which has been caught lying and spying on millions of people illegally, that just came out the other day. Are you going to use CNN? They're one of the biggest sources of disinformation, when all you have to do is look at the Russian collusion hoax. You're going to use NBC? Who are you going to use? What criteria have you established in order to make somebody, some source, whether it be a person or a company or whatever, or a network, what criteria are you using to determine whether that source is or is not disinformation? If you can't show me your documentation of that shows the criteria that you think of a checklist, okay, this company checks all these blocks to be a credible information or a credible source of information, what else? What do you have? If you don't have a criteria, if you don't have a legally, because you're a representative of the government, if you don't have a legal document says that a person and to be, or company, whatever, that is determined to be credible has met this criteria, then you have subjectivity. Okay, subjectivity is not objectivity. If you cannot objectively, by legal standards, say that a source is credible, B, this source is disinformation, if you don't have an object list or criteria that you went by, then you are participating in misinformation yourselves. If you deem a person or outlet or media source or whatever as disinformation, and you don't have an objective criteria that you can show where this has been proven to be true or false, etc., you have nothing but subjectivity. How do you overcome this? It's a catch-22. You're not going to be able to. You are nothing but you are Pravda. You may not be putting out information like Pravda of old days did. However, when you start saying this is disinformation, this is disinformation, but you don't have an objective criteria that you use to actually legally say that they're disinformation, then you are Pravda. You are the United States government's representative saying this source of information or this particular part of information is wrong or disinformation. You're just saying that based on what? What criteria do you have? So, and also let's go back a little bit. So let's look at the timing of this. So here's my thoughts and opinion on this. So agree, disagree, whatever. It's just my opinion. I still have the right to express this opinion of mine without being abridged. So go back to Truth Social. Truth Social was started obviously by Donald J. Trump and his associates, and it's exploding. So yeah, it's been a slow roll, blah, 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 whatever. You can say whatever you want, but the amount of subscribers and the amount of engagement with the subscribers they have. Now, keep in mind, they've only opened it to Apple users, period. They haven't opened it to Android users, nor have they opened it up to where you can access this on a laptop. So we're talking millions of just Apple subscribers. The engagement percentage from True Social as compared to Facebook, Twitter, etc., is exponentially larger. So as an example, if you have 1 million followers on True Social, you're getting a 65 to 70% engagement rate. The same amount of users on Twitter, you talking about the same person that's being subscribed to on True Social versus Twitter, is roughly 25%. So anyway, True Social gets bound up, and they overcome the first couple of hurdles. They open it up to do a beta test, and they open it up fully to Apple. They just recently migrated to Rumble's web services, so now that part's all done. So soon to follows Android, soon to follows the web-based users. So all of a sudden, out of the blue, Elon Musk's buying Twitter. Twitter is the number one competitor of True Social, not Facebook. Twitter. Twitter was going down to fucking shit tubes. Stock market wise, people were leaving. They're losing subscribers. They're losing users, etc. Right? So lo and behold, Elon Musk is going to ride in on his white horse to save the day, to make Twitter a free speech platform, just before True Social opens up fully to Android and web-based users. Anyway, that timing's kind of suspect. Well, then a week later, we all of a sudden get fed this line of this newly created, but it was a continuation of the previous administration's organization called the Disinformation Board. Weird. So if you've never done work with the government, in the government, you never worked for the government, let me explain something to you. Governmental agencies do not get established in a week or a month. Doesn't happen. When you're talking about an executive branch or department that falls under the executive branch, there's a whole bunch of stuff that has to happen in order for this department to get stood up. Also, there has to be funding. So you can't take John Q. government servant who's under this other department, slide him to this other department, but still pay him from this department. That does not happen. It happens on occasion for temporary bases. So you get loaned out from Department A over to Department B for a week, a month, 2 months to do whatever work, to coordinate with them on certain things. But then after that, you come back to your home department. Whole new department being stood up in less than a month with funding up to and including a point where there's a director of that department already picked in less than a month? No, doesn't happen. Never in the history of ever has that ever happened, where a department falling under the executive branch is thought of, stood up, funded with a named director in less than a month. It's fucking possible. The funding alone prevents that. Somebody really needs to dig into the funding of the people that work for this department. They're going to be government servant, GS, whatever they're going to be working for this department. Where does their funding come from? If there is a line of accounting specifically for those positions, keep in mind, each position under them has to be funded with a line of accounting specified by Congress. Does that exist? Anyway, so True Social starts blowing up, starts becoming a thing. All of a sudden, Elon Musk's buying Twitter, which is their competitor, their biggest competitor, or going to be their biggest competitor. He's going to make it a free speech platform, so that starts pulling would-be True Social users back over to Twitter. And all of a sudden, we have this truth. Now, what the media was portraying was Elon's a Nazi now, even though he was the hero because of the electric car and because of X-Space and because of, SpaceX, and because of his Skynet or his internet stuff, right? Because he's free internet to Ukraine, right? He's this fucking hero. All of a sudden now he's the devil. He's a Nazi. He's Hitler because he's buying Twitter. He's going to open up the free speech. He's this bad guy. He's a bad guy. All this misinformation is going to start happening. All this disinformation. Oh, poof. We have this government department that's already established and already funded and already has a named director that's going to curtail disinformation. You guys are buying this? You guys are This makes perfect sense to you? This is logical that this sequence of events happens in the way that it does? It doesn't. If you believe it, you're fucking stupid. You're completely asleep. So anyway, so now we have this Disinformation Board. Nobody has any idea what their legal left and rights are. Nobody has no idea what their legal base is. You have to have a legal base. If you just come out as a government representative and say that's disinformation against the private citizens, as an example, you better have your shit together. So there we are with that. And just yesterday, this thing came out with this leaked draft Supreme Court decision on the Mississippi case that's going to be overturning Roe versus Wade. Oh, wow, coincidences. Let's go in that route. So we have this Disinformation Board that just happens to, poof, exist. All of a sudden, for the first time in our governmental history, a draft decision has been leaked. First time ever this has happened. Judges have to have be able to freely discuss with their counterparts, in this case, in the Supreme Court justices. They hear a case, they research the legalities, they research case history, blah, 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 and then they argue amongst themselves and then come to their decision. That's typically, but they're allowed to do that anonymously or out of view of the media, out of view of the general public, because they have to be able to do that to discuss the legalities. Politics should have nothing to do with law regarding the legality of law. Okay? So, lo and behold, this thing comes out about the leaks because, hey, it's definitely not going to go the left's way. And just so happens, this happened yesterday on the 2nd, just so happens tonight, Vice President Dumbass is the keynote speaker at an organization that's a huge pro-abortion organization. It's just crazy how a leaked document that's about to overturn Roe versus Wade leaks the day before the vice president is giving a speech in front of a huge pro-abortion organization. Oh, and last night, both Schumer and batshit crazy Pelosi had pre-written their response to the leak already prepared. Coincidences. Gotta love them. Oh, and by the way, for you dumbasses who don't know, Roe versus Wade being overturned does not make abortion illegal. It doesn't. It pulls the federal government out of the abortion mess. The federal government has absolutely no business whatsoever in abortion. Show me the section, the amendment, the clause of the Constitution that says the federal government has jurisdiction over abortion. What I'll do is tell you you're full of shit, and I'll point you to the fucking 10th Amendment. Abortion is a state and local issue. If the state of Georgia wants to outlaw abortion, totally, 100%, that is that state's constitutionally guaranteed right to and prevalence to do so. They are a sovereign state with their own sovereign constitution that they use to govern their state. That's why no state constitution is exactly the same. And by the way, if you didn't know, before a state becomes a state of the United States of America, they have to have their own approved constitution. So the state legislature has to proffer and sign and approve, and the governor has to sign the constitution of that state before they are allowed to become a state. So each state has their own constitution. So if the state of Georgia wants to outlaw it, the state of Alabama wants to allow post-birth abortion, that's that state's prevalence and jurisprudence to do so. If you live in a state, such in my example in Georgia, and they've outlawed abortion, and you want to have an abortion, drive your ass across the state line to fucking Alabama, get your fucking abortion. They didn't outlaw abortion. That didn't go away. Oh, and for you fucking idiots, oh, the woman's my body, my choice. fuck you, you dumb motherfucker. So, pardon me, but if you can't define a woman, if you think a person with a fucking penis is a woman, that argument's out the window. Gone. Bye, Felicia. If you can't define a woman, then you can't say that if you're not a woman, you don't have a say in this matter. So what my retort to you will be was, you know what? I'm now a woman. I identify right now as a woman. So therefore, I have a voice when it comes to the abortion argument. And then after I voice my opinion and give my take on it, reminds you, I'm a woman. You can't talk to the hand. I'm a woman. I have a voice now when it comes to abortion. I give my opinion. Oh, wow. No, I'm a man now. It's your argument. It's your position that you can't identify or define a woman. A woman is not identifiable. You can't say genetics makes a woman. It's how a person feels that makes a woman. You're giving out tampons and maxi pads in boys' restrooms in high schools. So when the boys are menstruating, they have that stuff available to them. And you're going to tell me I don't have a voice in the abortion argument because it's a woman's body? You're fucking stupid. You are stupid. There's no other word that I can pull out of my head to quantifiably identify what you are other than stupid. Or you have an agenda and you're doing everything to stick to that agenda. That's it. That's the two choices you have. You're stupid because you're trying to say you can't define a woman, but if you're not a woman, you don't have a voice in the abortion argument. Or you have an agenda to destroy this country, to destroy the nuclear family in order to destroy this country. If you're a liberal, not Democrat, I'm not using that word on purpose. If you are a progressive liberal, your intent is to destroy this country, to fundamentally change this country away from what it was to what your ideal utopian country is, which is China. Look at what they're doing in was it Shanghai? That's ideal to you? Locking up, boarding up millions of people because of a virus that has a 99% survival rate? Really? Is that what we're doing now? Oh, and speaking of that, there's this new strain of hepatitis that's coming out in our children. New strain of hepatitis. We're going to call it like D or F or fucking T. I don't know. Whatever the fuck they're going to call it, right? Funny part. Coincidentally, here's that coincidence again. 100% of the kids that have this new hepatitis variant have been vaccinated. Just weird how coincidences work in this fucking country, didn't it? Just weird. So, another reason why I haven't been doing videos is because I've basically, let's just say I've given up. I can't change anybody's minds. But those of you that watch my videos and listen to me, you pretty much agree with almost everything I say. There may be some differences here and there, or you may not agree to the extent of something that I do, whatever, all right, cool. But basically, in a nutshell, we agree. There's nothing I can do to change a liberal's mind. It ain't gonna happen. They're set. Their ego and pride will not allow them to go, holy shit, I've been duped. I was wrong. Mea culpa, and become a conservative. It's not going to happen. Right now, in a big picture, Bill Gates was involved in Event 201. If you don't know what that one is, you really need to, you're really fucking stupid. He's involved with the vaccines that came out of Event 201. He owns over 10 million acres of farmland in the United States. China, just in Georgia alone, owns over 1 million acres of farmland in the United States. We have roughly 18 or so, just in the U.S., food processing plants that are on fire or have burnt to the ground. Not too long ago, Biden came out because of the stuff going on in Ukraine, came out and said that there's going to be a food shortage because Ukraine produces 30% of the wheat, globally speaking. There's going to be a food shortage and we're going to feel it. Okay? We already have supply chain issues because of various reasons. Government manipulation being one of them. Government involvement being one of them. So we have already have a supply chain issue. Now we have a supply issue because of what's going on in Ukraine. Okay? 15% of the food in the United States is imported. 85% of it we produce within our own borders. But we have a food shortage here in the United States. And we're going to feel it, according to Biden. And it just so happens one person involved with the Event 201, involved with the vaccine, now owns 10 million acres of farmland in the United States. Our biggest enemy on this planet, it ain't Russia, by the way, it's fucking China, but whatever, owns, in Georgia alone, 1 million acres of farmland. How much else do they own in the United States? And we have now we have a food shortage. Weird. There was just 3 days ago, I believe it was, 2 days ago maybe, 60 tons, 120,000 pounds of red meat was recalled because of Ebola or E. coli, whatever. Weird. We just had a whole bunch of corn recalled because of got some disease, potentially, maybe, sort of, possibly. So yeah, I've basically given up. Not given up on myself, not given up on my family. I still love this country. I served it for 24 years in 2 branches of the military. I still love what the country's soul is or was. I've never believed or trusted our government at all, ever. Never will. Even while I served, I swore, I'll obey the orders of the officers appointed over me, but I've refused to obey a few when they weren't legal. But I've given up on the idea that we are going to turn this country around.
And that's where my phone stopped recording. So I just wanted to finish this and then get it posted up for you guys. So basically, just try to make sure everybody understands where I'm coming from. I started doing videos kind of as therapeutic to get stuff off my mind, that kind of stuff. And then I did it to try to show how I look and view certain things, how I look at things and come to the determinations that I do, how I read between the lines, that kind of stuff. Try to help people out, show people just a different perspective. But it takes a lot of work to do a show like a podcast like this. I don't just throw out bullshit. I don't just throw out lies. I read, I research. So I'm knee deep, waist deep in the muck that people. I have to read like CNN articles and MSNBC articles. I have to do all that kind of bullshit, and it's sickening the amount. I went to the police academy a lifetime ago, and one of the things they taught us, and you also learned this in the military, is you have to look at the totality of the circumstances. So if you roll up on a crime scene kind of thing, right? Or you get called to domestic violence, whatever. When you show up in a scene, you have to look at the whole scene. You have to look at everything that's going on. You can't just focus on the bloody footprint next to the body. You can't just look at one person being the aggressor because they may just be defending themselves, right? You have to look at the whole circumstances. Even in the military, it's the same thing. You have to look at the whole battle plan. You have to look at the map. You have to know where you are. You have to know where your enemies are, blah, 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 blah. You have to be cognizant. It's called situational awareness in the military. So I look at everything. And if you literally took 3 steps back and look at everything that's going on in the country, there are so many needle pricks. And I did a video on this a while ago about death. It's called Death by 1,000 Needles. If you focus on just the one needle prick, you're not paying attention to the other 999 of them. You have to look at everything that's going on. So you have to look at everything that happened with COVID. You have to look at everything that happened since COVID with the supply chain. You have to look at the economy. You have to look at how bad interest rates are because of we're soon to reach hyperinflation. We're currently in record high inflation because of multiple factors. But a big one is obviously our government printing money out of thin air. It has no backing to it. It's valueless. The more money they print, the less value each dollar has, etc. They're raising interest rates now to try to curb the inflation, which means not only is everything more expensive to buy, it's now more expensive to get the money to buy it if you're looking at a mortgage or a car loan or whatever. Look at all the food shortages that are going on. Look at the new hepatitis thing that's coming out. With kids. Everything that's involved with all the negative outcomes from vaccinations. Everything involved with Ukraine. Ukraine's been corrupt since Ukraine's been Ukraine. Our government's been involved. Money laundering. Look, everything with Joe Biden. Everything with Hunter Biden. Then you got to look at big tech and what they're doing, censoring any conservative platform, podcast, personality that reaches a certain level. They start stymieing. They start doing shadow banning. They start doing demonetization. So I look at this whole thing in totality, and it's just hell in a handbasket. Best way I can say it. It's things are happening that shouldn't be happening. Things that never in this country should ever have happened. I can't see government fixing anything because they're the cause of the problem. I can't see us fixing it because of, just look what happened with the whole January 6th bullshit. The whole, quote, insurrection, unquote. They made this huge deal. They're still making this huge deal. And it's going to become an October surprise. They're going to have their final findings come, right at the end of September, beginning of October, right before the midterms hit, to try to sway voters away from conservative candidates. It's kabuki theater at our government levels. Everything that went down with the 2020 election, you can't talk about it. You can't read about it because that information is being censored from you. There's so much bad, so much wrong, so many things that are just not right happening, not just in the United States, but I'm speaking specifically of the United States because that's where I live. What's the point? At this point, if 1776 doesn't happen, I can't see us, pulling out of this nosedive. I can't as a country. I can't. I'm assuming there's going to be this red wave happening in October with the, and then the Republicans taking back over control of the House and Senate. But so what? What is it going to do? Their track record, keep in mind, the first 2 years of Trump's presidency, he had a Republican-led House and Senate. And what did they do? They spent all their fucking time investigating Trump or going through all the hearings about the Russian collusion and all that bullshit. During Obama's administration, there was a period where it was the Republican House, Republican Senate. Nothing fucking got done. So we're going to be repeating that because Biden's still in fucking office. Okay, so if we take back the House and Senate, we can block some of his stuff or whatever, but we've been there before. It's not, what's going to happen? We're going to have establishment dumbasses running our country unless we start pulling in independent or libertarian candidates. We're going to have more rhinos put in office that are supposedly going to make stuff happen. We hear all this bluster from our current senators, Republican congressmen of they're protesting and the way that the committees are ran. But when they were in charge, they did the same shit. So what's going to happen with this red wave? Are they going to impeach Biden? I doubt it. Are they going to revamp the FBI? No. Are they going to revamp the CIA? No. Are they going to revamp the DOJ? No. They're going to let the Patriot Act expire or sunset in 2023 like it's supposed to? No. They're going to reinstate it. You have Vanguard and BlackRock sucking up houses left and right. You can't find anything affordable at I'm not even talking minimum wage. I'm talking about at a decent wage. If you and your spouse are making each $20 an hour at jobs, in a majority of the places in the United States right now, as far as housing goes, you're just getting by. You're going to be paycheck to paycheck. $2,000 a month rent. I saw a list. Oh my God, $265,000 for a shack at a 5.5% interest rate now. 2 years from now, what happens when the market collapses like it did in 2008, 2009? You're now stuck with a 5.5% interest. You may be able to refinance to get a lower interest rate, but who's going to refinance you on a house that's only worth $100,000 when you owe $260,000 on a house? It's going to be 2008, 2009 all over again, just in the housing market, but then you have to add everything else into it. And if we step into this hyperinflation, which is being predicted, and then the potential outcome of the hyperinflation is the U.S. dollar no longer becomes the global trade money, we're done. Our economic system collapses. Everything collapses. So what I'm trying to get to all this is the point of me being done is I don't have the drive to put these videos out, not because I'm lazy, not because they're not fruitful and I don't have 1 million followers. It's nothing to do with that. It's just I'm getting mired and having to read to do the research and stuff for my shows, and then just seeing all this stuff. It's just and you look at it, even like from a biblical type standpoint. That's kind of how I'm looking at it now. I gotta pull myself away from the world, if you will. I don't know. I might still do some here and there or whatever if I as stuff comes up as I see it. But anyway, I just want to explain to you what's going on. Hope you enjoyed. And with that, enjoy the rest of your evening or the rest of your day or whatever's left of it.
This has been a dose of reality from CNS Dispatch. Citizens, not servants. We now return you to your involuntary mental programming.